The best of Money Matters. The Big Story.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Hongbin Jeong. The devastating wildfires sweeping across Los Angeles have claimed at least 24 lives, with officials warning that its worsening condition could intensify the crisis. Experts and authorities alike have described the recent wildfires as the worst disaster in U.S. history. The fires have scorched over 40,000 acres combined, leaving a path of destruction and threatens various iconic landmarks and countless homes. And with containment efforts progressing slowly, authorities still remain on high alert. The financial toll is also expected to surpass $250 billion and thousands still remain displaced and awaiting updates on evolving evacuation plans. To find out more, joining us today is Char Miller, who is the W.M. Keck Professor of Environmental Analysis and History at Pomona College in Claremont, California. Professor Miller, welcome to the show. Now, just to get our interview rolling here, what's the latest on the ground? Which areas in LA are currently most severely affected by the wildfires here, Professor?
There's two main areas, the first of which is where the fires first blew up in the Palisades, close to the Pacific Ocean. The other is the Eaton fire, which is farther inland and centered around the cities of Altadena and Pasadena. One is in the foothills, the other, the Palisades, are in the Santa Monica Mountains, and they've been horrifically damaged by this conflagration.
I see. Are the current weather conditions making it harder for the fire to be contained, Professor?
The original fire conditions were appallingly bad, and I say that without exaggeration. In fact, it's the worst I've ever seen. With 100-mile-an-hour gusts, 60 to 70-mile-an-hour sustained winds, no airplanes could come in to fight the fire. Firefighters could not really do their job because the winds were so fierce. The images are really stark and terrifying, and it's actually surprising to me that so few people died. 24 are now confirmed dead, but given the speed with which those fires moved, it could have been a lot worse. The conditions currently have diminished some, and so one of the ways to track that is the wind speed has fallen considerably, which means firefighters can do their job. And on every 5 minutes or so, it seems, evacuation orders are being rescinded. They're being dropped. And so it's very clear that they're starting to gain control over these two major fires, which frankly is a relief.
I see. Well, Professor, what is the worst case scenario for the LA fires? What is the forecast for the next few days in terms of fire spread and weather conditions?
Well, the weather conditions are improving. The wind has fallen, the humidity has risen, which two factors that are absolutely essential to understanding fire regimes such as this. That said, there's supposed to be new pulses of wind energy flowing through Southern California, and that may kick up the fires again, in which case that's terrible. What I'm actually most worried about is the ash and dust and grit that the fires blew out into the sky that has now fallen onto the streets, fallen onto trees, and obviously been inhaled in people's lungs. This is a very dangerous health situation. And I don't think there's been enough conversation about just how dangerous that ash and soot is, because it's going to be life-changing itself because of the damages to people's lungs.
I see. Then what kind of long-term damages does that entail to our lungs?
Well, there's two things, one of which is, or three things really. The key to this is the particulate matter, the particles are so fine, they're called fine particulate matter, that they actually penetrate to the deepest recesses of our lungs. That's not good. So the resulting consequences of that could be asthma, it could be various pulmonary diseases, weakened immune systems, and it's going to be hard to disentangle that from Los Angeles's legendary smog. But I think in time, epidemiologists will note these fires and all of the fires we've had during the last 20 years and see an uptick in all of these diseases.
Well, Professor, then are the wildfires turning into a deadly urban conflagration?
Yeah, it began as a deadly urban fire. And that's something we think about these as wildfires. They're actually not wildfires. They are urban fires. They are structure fires. And if we think about them as structure fires, we have to learn how to fight structure fires differently than we do currently. And one of the dilemmas, for example, is that fire hydrants are designed for one fire at a time. These are 500 houses going up in smoke instantly. As one calculation is, that 300 yards roughly burned every minute. Well, they got anybody out is amazing. And that any houses are left standing is striking. That's an enormously fast fire that is leaping from roof to roof, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood in almost a blink of an eye. It's terrifying. I don't think that speed is going to come back because the winds aren't like that any longer. But boy, is that a warning signal.
Then, Professor, could we attribute climate change and a warming climate that is causing the fires to spread faster than ever before?
We can give it some credit. And I say that lightly, but I mean that truthfully. This region from El Paso, Texas to Los Angeles has been drying out for the last 40 years, and the Environmental Protection Agency administration thinks that's going to continue for the rest of this century. So if drought is one of the drivers, and climate change and the warmth of this planet is making that drought longer, then I think we can put our finger on climate change. We've always had Santa Ana winds, and maybe climate change is shifting both the intensity of those winds and even, and this has happened, shifting when they occur at their most intense. They used to blow up in August, September, and October. Now the big winds are coming December, January, February, maybe even into March. That means our fire season has also extended to 12 months when it used to be 3, maybe 4 months. Now it's a full year.
I mean, Professor, January is not really the typical time for nasty California fires. What factors do you think change that?
Well, I think January has become a nasty fire month. We've had 3 mega fires since 2017 that actually were much bigger than these fires, both in terms of their size, the intensity, the amount of acreage burned, and also the number of people who evacuated. The Woolsey fire of 2018 pushed more than 300,000 people out onto the streets and into the freeways and out of the fire's way. We have about 200,000 who've evacuated, but you've got to have some comparison. And so, but this is a problem. This is a real problem because we're not getting rain in January. That's sort of the trigger here that we're in a drought. And we need to get used to drought being the norm, not being abnormal.
I see. Well, investigators are considering an array of possible ignition sources for the huge fires. Residents are comparing notes on what they saw in the hills around them in the run-up to the blazes. Utilities are looking into nearby faults in their equipment. Politicians, they are pointing fingers, and online sleuths are sharing video and other purported evidence on social media platforms. So, Professor, why are there so many questions behind what or who ignited the fires? Could the fires have been caused by human error?
The finger pointing is driving me crazy. We don't know enough to be able to talk carefully about the ignition sources and how this dynamic system erupted so powerfully. We know the natural forces, the winds and the like. What we're doing, I think, by the finger pointing is that we cannot understand a firestorm of this intensity. And so there must be someone or something to blame. There will be, and we'll figure those stories out. I think some of the smaller fires that have been contained and actually suppressed fully were arson, and they have already caught one arsonist. We don't get lightning strike fires in Southern California. So it's either going to be accidental, like a utility wire, or it's going to be intentional arson. And both things drive me crazy because this has happened before, and we need to be smarter about how and why we extend electricity across this part of the planet.
I see. Could more have been done to stop the fires from spreading then? Do you think the LA authorities fell short in their processes, Professor?
No. And I want to go back to those. I don't think there's anything that anybody could have done in the first 36 hours that would have changed one dynamic at all. And it's really hard to say because I'd really like people to be responsible in what happened. But in this case, nature way outran our capacity to fight fire because we've never seen a fire in Southern California that moved as quickly as this one did, pushed by hurricane force winds. So liken it to a typhoon. We could no more stop this fire than we could stop a typhoon. Right. And that seems to me a way to think about just how dangerous this situation was.
I see, I see. Well, what will the recovery process then look like after the fires are contained, both for the environment and affected communities?
Yeah, the affected communities will recover at different rates. The Palisades, many of the people who lived in the Palisades were quite wealthy. They have the human resources and they have the financial resources to rebuild if they choose to do so. I actually know people who will not rebuild in that neighborhood. Altadena and Pasadena is of a different set of wealth and means and circumstances. And for many of the people in Altadena, which was a wonderfully diverse neighborhood, Black, Asian, Hispanic, whites, middle class, working class, upper class, that's going to be a tougher recovery because not everybody has the means to recover, and not everyone is going to get mortgages as a result. And so my worry is the social injustice here, like the sort of more vulnerable, poorer communities in terms of public health, those are the folks who are going to lose out.
Right, right. Are there any long-term environmental consequences we should be aware of as well?
Yeah, I think there's two. One of which is the public's health, for example. I mean, I see public health as an environmental issue, and since air and soot and toxicity in these buildings has now blown skyward, we've got an environmental problem that will be lodged within our bodies. The other environmental issues are, and this is classic Southern California, often after rains, after fires, there's rain, and everybody wants rain to come. We would just like it to be very light, because if it comes hard, there's going to be mudslides and landslides, and we've had that pattern. That pattern has happened over the century. So there's a lot of things at play, and it's very complex.
Now, Professor, a preliminary estimate by AccuWeather put the damage and economic losses so far between $135 billion and $150 billion US. Now, experts say this may be the costliest wildfire in California modern history, and also very likely the costliest wildfire in U.S. modern history. So can the state recover from these financial losses as well? What's going to take to rebuild the areas affected?
It's going to take a lot of money. And so here's the dilemma. Some people will be able to afford because they have a great deal of cash to rebuild. Others will not, as I just indicated. But the size of the losses is just staggering, in part because Los Angeles's real estate is so inflated. So that 150 billion, sure. If this fire occurred in a different place, it would be probably half that, because the real estate value is probably half that in a place like San Antonio, Texas, where I lived for many years. So this is going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. But I think the state as a state and Los Angeles as a city has so many resources and such good political leadership that I think we'll be fine. We'll find out over the next year, but I'm betting on this region.
And before we let you go here, Professor, looking ahead in the next couple of years, do you think billion-dollar disasters are going to be more common due to climate change?
Yeah, I think everywhere on the planet that's true. Whether we're talking about sea level rise across this oceanic planet. Singapore is not alone in this process. Miami, name your seaport that is in a fairly low level of elevation. We're going to see some real disasters and entire cities that we're going to have to figure out how to make themselves more resilient and respond. The Bay Area of San Francisco is another place that's going to get whacked by sea level rise. In addition to that, the planet is warming. This is the 5th year in a row that it's the hottest on record, and that's going to change all sorts of dynamics across this planet. A place that we love, we're treating pretty badly, and the climate is responding.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Professor, for your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much for the chance to contribute.
We've been speaking with Char Miller, who is the W.M. Keck Professor of Environmental Analysis and History at Pomona College in Claremont, California. This has been The Big Story with me, Hongbin Jeong.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.